Hello and welcome to the football world. You're watching the Football Current, powered by pure football energy. There are certain clubs in football that feel like giants, even when the trophy cabinet says otherwise. Clubs that build expectation, that create belief.
Objective. What's the club's objective? I mean, at the start of the year, they sort of said compete on all fronts. Well, the club hasn't competed on all fronts for a very long time.
So much, for so long, and yet somehow always leaves its own story incomplete. When former managers speak about their time at the club, you can hear it in their voices. Frustration, confusion, a lingering question about direction. What is the objective? They ask. Compete on all fronts, the ambition always seems to be. But ambition in football is not measured by press conferences. It is measured in medals. And for over 2 decades under Daniel Levy, Tottenham have walked a strange line between financial success and footballing hesitation. This is the story of how a club built a world-class stadium, generated elite revenues, reached a Champions League final, and yet still feels lost in its own reflection. For much of the last 20 years, Tottenham have been defined by balance sheets rather than banners. From a business perspective, they are a model. The Tottenham Hotspur Stadium is one of the most impressive arenas in Europe, hosting NFL games, concerts, global events. It is a revenue machine. In modern football terms, Spurs are elite operators. But football is not just infrastructure. It is identity. It is courage. It is timing. And that is where the tension begins. In London, pressure does not whisper. It screams. Surrounded by rivals like Arsenal, Chelsea, and others chasing domestic and European glory, Tottenham's margins feel thinner. Yes, Spurs won a European trophy decades ago before their North London rivals ever did. History exists, but modern football lives in the present. Under Daniel Levy, the club embraced prudence, stability, sustainability, and to be fair, there were moments where it felt like the blueprint was working. In the early 2010s, under Harry Redknapp, Tottenham began to look serious again. The squad was rich with talent. Gareth Bale, Luka Modric, Jermaine Defoe, Danny Rose, Kyle Walker. This was not a team lacking quality. It was dynamic, fearless, capable of hurting anyone. When they secured Champions League football for the first time in the Premier League era, it felt monumental. A breakthrough. One moment symbolized that shift. A long-awaited league win over Arsenal, sealed by a thunderous strike from Danny Rose. It was more than 3 points. It was a statement. Spurs were no longer just participating. They were competing. And then came the rise of Gareth Bale. You could watch his evolution in real time. From a promising left-back to a left-footed hurricane tearing through defenses. Pace, power, precision. There were games in the 2012-13 season where he carried Tottenham alone. Long-range strikes, solo runs, late winners. It felt inevitable that the world would come calling. And Florentino Perez did. Real Madrid saw in Bale the heir to Cristiano Ronaldo. The transfer fee was enormous. Financially, it was a triumph. On paper, that money should have transformed Tottenham. But this is where the pattern begins to show. The Bale money was spread across multiple signings. Some delivered moments. Christian Eriksen became influential. Others, like Eric Lamela, had flashes. But overall, the spending spree never truly elevated the collective level. Luka Modric had already left for Madrid. Now Bale was gone. The profits were impressive. The footballing growth, less so. Spurs were always just about replacing, rarely about surpassing. Recognizing the need for a reset, Levy turned to Mauricio Pochettino in 2014. It was a decision that felt aligned with a long-term vision. Pochettino had impressed at Southampton. He believed in youth, in intensity, in development, and almost immediately the transformation was visible. Tottenham became energetic, aggressive, cohesive. The press was synchronized. The structure was clear. Young players flourished. Harry Kane, once viewed as a squad player, became the focal point. He shattered the one-season wonder label with ruthless consistency, scoring 20, then 30 goals a season with remarkable composure. Around him emerged Dele Alli, electric and fearless. Heung-min Son, clinical and selfless. Eric Dier, versatile and disciplined. And behind them, the engine room of Moussa Dembele. Ask any former teammate about Dembele, and their eyes light up. He glided through pressure like few midfielders in modern football. Strong, technically exquisite, almost impossible to dispossess. Alongside him, The defensive pairing of Toby Alderweireld and Jan Vertonghen provided stability, while Hugo Lloris anchored the back line with leadership and reflexes. This was not an accidental good team. It was constructed with clarity. In 2016-17, Spurs finished second in the Premier League, their highest finish since 1961. For a moment, it felt like the leap was coming. The identity was there. The chemistry was there. The infrastructure, with the new stadium rising, suggested permanence. And then came the moment that, in hindsight, defined everything. The summer of 2018. After finishing third in the league, Tottenham became the first Premier League club to go an entire transfer window without signing a single player. Not one. When you are close to the summit, you push. You reinforce. You accelerate. Instead, Spurs froze. The financial demands of the new stadium project tightened spending. Depth eroded. Fatigue crept in. And yet, football can be poetic. Despite injuries to Kane and others, despite the lack of reinforcements, Tottenham embarked on an extraordinary Champions League run. Dramatic victories against Manchester City. A miracle comeback against Ajax, sealed by Lucas Moura's hat-trick in Amsterdam. It was chaos. It was magic. It was peak Spurs drama. They reached the final, but in Madrid they lost. No trophy. Again, the pattern repeated. So close, not quite. Eventually, the cycle turned harsh. Form dipped. Pochettino, the architect of their modern renaissance, was dismissed just 12 games into the following season. It felt abrupt, emotional, perhaps premature. In his place arrived Jose Mourinho. On paper, it was a declaration of intent. A serial winner, a manager who thrives on finals. But Mourinho's pragmatism clashed with Tottenham's cultural DNA. The football became cautious, the atmosphere tense. And then, in one of the most perplexing decisions in recent memory, Mourinho was sacked days before a cup final. Spurs lost the final. The symbolism was brutal. Even when a proven winner was at the door of silverware, the club hesitated. After Mourinho came Antonio Conte, another demanding figure, another short-lived experiment. Strong start. Familiar decline. Public frustration. Exit. Then arrived Ange Postecoglou, bringing with him bold attacking principles and a refreshing clarity. "It's just who we are, mate," he insisted. High tempo, courage, risk. Early momentum suggested renewal. He even delivered silverware during a turbulent period. But domestic inconsistency persisted. Pressure mounted. And once again, the reset button was pressed. Recently, under interim guidance from Igor Tudor, Tottenham have found themselves staring at uncomfortable realities. Injuries, thin squads, defensive fragility. A North London derby loss to Arsenal by 4 goals that exposed the gap in confidence and cohesion. Tudor admitted it openly. The difference was clear. Psychologically, physically, structurally. Even when Spurs start brightly, as they did in that derby, the resilience fades. Defensive lines that are not first-choice struggle. Midfields open under pressure. Confidence evaporates. For Tottenham fans, the fear has shifted from missing trophies to flirting with the bottom half of the table. In some moments, even relegation talk has surfaced, unthinkable during the Pochettino peak. And yet, the most painful aspect is this: Tottenham have never lacked talent. From Bale to Kane, from Modric to Son, from Dembele to Lloris, world-class individuals have worn that shirt. Managers with pedigree have stood on that touchline. A world-class stadium gleams under North London lights. What has been missing is alignment. Alignment between ambition and action, between timing and courage, between financial prudence and footballing ruthlessness. Each era contains the same ingredients: promise, progress, pause, reset. When Pochettino had the squad peaking, reinforcements stalled. When Mourinho offered immediate silverware potential, patience vanished. When Conte demanded backing, friction surfaced. When Postecoglou introduced identity, instability followed. Tottenham's motto reads, "To dare is to do," yet too often daring stops at discussion. The doing falters at the final step. This is not a club without history. It is not a club without resources. It is not even a club without vision. It is a club that repeatedly hesitates at the critical moment when belief must turn into decisive investment. And that hesitation over time becomes culture. For supporters, the emotional toll is complex. There is pride in the football played under Pochettino. There are memories of European nights that felt transcendent. There are individual legends whose brilliance cannot be erased. But there is also the ache of what might have been. Harry Kane's prime years passed without a major trophy in North London. Gareth Bale's peak required Madrid to fully crystallize. Generations of supporters have experienced hope swelling, only to watch it plateau. In modern football, marginal decisions define legacies. One summer window, one managerial call, one refusal to strengthen when momentum demands it. Tottenham's story is not one of incompetence. It is one of incomplete commitment. Financially secure, structurally impressive, sporadically brilliant, yet rarely ruthless. As rivals evolve and adapt, Spurs often appear caught between eras, modern in business, uncertain in football philosophy. And when derbies are lost heavily, when defensive lines crumble, when confidence drains from talented players, the psychological gap widens. The question, then, is not whether Tottenham can compete. History proves they can. The question is whether they are willing to align ambition with decisive, sustained action, even when it risks financial caution. Because football does not reward half measures, punishes hesitation. Tottenham Hotspur stand today at another crossroads. A familiar one. Talented individuals, passionate fan base, a city that demands excellence, a stadium worthy of champions. But identity is not built in architecture. It is forged in moments of risk. The cycle can continue. New manager, new optimism, new promises, or it can break. And perhaps that is the real legacy question hanging over North London. Will Spurs finally dare? And truly do? Or will they remain the club forever chasing the version of themselves they once briefly became? Let me know what you think. Has Tottenham's biggest problem been timing, ownership philosophy, or pure misfortune? Drop your thoughts below. And if you enjoyed this deep dive into football's most fascinating paradox, make sure you subscribe for more premium analysis and storytelling. Because in football, history is written not just by those who dream, but by those who act.